Okay, so on this question, we have a difficult question, minus 2x plus 7y greater than or equal to negative 21 halves. They want us to graph it. Okay, so you know what we do. Step number one, get y alone. So we know what to do, but it's just not an easy one at all. It's not easy to do that. So first off, I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Here's the, the wall of separation. So add 2x to both sides. Boom, boom. And we get 7y greater than or equal to 2x minus 21 halves, right? Okay. So now what are we supposed to do? We're trying to get y alone. And so we need to divide through by 7, don't we? Now remember, when we divide, we have to divide all three, right? We have equal treatment. We're going to do the same thing to both sides to keep the balance. So whatever we do to one part, we're going to do to all three. So divide all three by 7. And so that gives us y. Now, do I need to flip the symbol? No, because I divided by a positive, not a negative. You only flip the symbol when you divide by a negative number, not a positive number. So I'm dividing by a positive, so I don't need to flip the symbol. Keep it like it is. Okay, so what happens? Well, I get 2/7 x right here. Try that again. 2x over 7. And now here's the weird part. I mean, like, look at this. This is ugly. I mean, what in the world are we going to do with that? Well, here's what we're going to do. The easier way to divide, what does dividing mean? It means putting something in the denominator, right? That's what dividing means, putting it underneath the bar. So what's a better thing to do is, the easier thing to do is just put that 7 down there with the 2, and that is dividing. Do you see how that is dividing? Because the 7's in the bottom, right? Dividing means denominator. So, okay, so then what does that leave us? Well, 2 times 7 is 14. That good there. Now, we need to, we could reduce that fraction. Or you could just divide. I would just divide it on my calculator. Is that true? Yeah, just divide it on your calculator. Yeah, let's do that. So just divide it on your calculator, and it'll come out 1.5, I think, unless I'm miscalculating there. Just go ahead and calculate it and get a decimal. Yeah, 1.5. Okay. So, okay, good. So now we're ready to graph on that one. Yeah, now we're ready to graph. Right, okay. So now we can do it. So now, what do we do from here? Now we start with the number off to the right. So we just made it a decimal, basically. We just made it a decimal. And we start with that number, and that is the vertical y-intercept, isn't it? So that's going to be down 1.5. So it's going to be about right there. It's going to be right in the middle of 1 and 2. Does everybody see that right there? Right there? Down 1.5. It will allow you to put a dot down, right between -1 and -2, -1.5. Okay. And then from there, we got to find another point. How do we find our other point? Well, remember it's rise over run. Whatever the fraction next to x, that's your rise and your run. So from that point, now it's a little tricky. I need to, here we can see it all. I need to rise and run. I need to rise 2. So how do you rise 2? Well, notice I'm starting in the middle of 2 points, right? So I'm going to jump from middle to middle to middle. That's going to be rising 2. And then I'm going to go over 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to do this again. I want to show you a couple times. Is that making sense? The trick is we're starting in the middle. We don't usually have that. We're starting in the middle between 2 numbers. So that means when you rise 2, right? Rise 2 here. That 2 is going to go from middle to middle to middle. Because that's rising 2, right? So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go up 1. So that's a whole jump, right? I jumped from 1.5 to a half, right? Like think about money. Yeah, I have $1.50 and now I have a half a dollar, right? I jumped one and then boom. So that's up to, that's a rise of up to. So I went from middle to middle to middle. And then I'm going to go over 7. So from this middle over 1, 2, 3, staying in the middle, 4, 5, 6, 7, right there. Over 7, run over 7. And there's my dot right in the middle. Do you see that? It's right in the middle. So again, let's one more time. So we had this weird fraction thing here. We divided by the 7 in the bottom into 14, divide in your calculator, and you get this. And why do I divide? How do you might think, well, how do you know, Mr. How do you know? Why are you supposed to divide this? And we don't divide the 2 7s. Right. It's because we want a fraction next to X, don't we? We want, why? Why do we want a fraction? Because we want rise over run. We need 2 numbers there, don't we? We need to make it a fraction in front of X because we need rise and run for our slope. But the number at the back, we don't want that to be a fraction because that's just supposed to be 1 point, 1 starting point. So that's why we do it. I mean, you could make anything a decimal or anything a fraction at any time. We're just doing what's most convenient for us. And that is we want a fraction in the front because we want the 2 numbers rise and run. And we want it to not be a fraction, so make it a decimal, in the back because we just want 1 dot to start us off. That's why we do that. So make the 1 at the back a decimal, leave the 1 in the front a fraction. And then the 1 in the back, you just divide in your calculator, make it a decimal. That's your 1 starting dot down 1.5 right here. And then do your 2 numbers, your fraction next to X, rise and run, go up 2 from middle to middle to middle, and then over 7, staying right in the middle all the way. There we go. There's our 2 dots. And now we just connect the 2 dots with a nice straight line like that. Keep going like that. So there's our line. Now, and then we got to do the shading. So this was Y greater than or equal to. So remember the 3 different locations. Y equals is right on the line. Y greater is above the line. And then down here, Y less is below the line, right? So there's 3 regions. There's right on the line, which is the equal stuff. Above the line is greater, below the line is less. So what do we want to shade? Y greater or equal, right? We have that equal down there. That's the bottom of an equal sign. Greater or equal. So I'm going to shade the greater and the equals. So the greater's up here. And the equals, that's why we have a solid line, not a dotted line, right? Solid is the equals. If this didn't have the equals, if this was just greater, not equal, I would only shade above and have a dotted line. Dotted line means it's invisible. It's really not there. It's really not part of the answer. So you remember how that works, right? If we have Y greater than or equal, it's shade above solid line because it's equals, you want the line. Y less than or equal is shade below because less is below. Again, solid line because you have the equals. Whereas if you have like Y greater, just greater, that's shade above, but it's going to be a dotted line, isn't it? Because you don't have the equals, the line's invisible. And the final situation you could have is Y less than, and that is always shade below because less is below. And again, dotted line because you don't have the equals, you don't have the line. So anyway, we had, in our case, we had greater than or equal. So I did greater above and the equal. I want the solid line, not the dotted. So let me show how you would actually do that on a, share my screen with the actual problem. And here, this is a different one than the one I just did. This one right here. So let me do this one, clear this. So this one, notice, is a less than. So it's going to be the dotted line tool. So I'm not going to do the solid line tool. I'm going to use this, not that one. I don't want that. I want this, the dotted line tool, right? Clear it. So I'm going to use the dotted line tool. Okay. If you get Y alone here, I'm not showing all the work, but basically, I wonder if I could. Yeah, I could can show it right now. Okay, so basically it's going to end up, if you solve for y here, I'll just do it real quick. You're going to end up with y is less than, and it's going to be, what's that going to be? A minus 2x over 3. I'm just telling you, I'm kind of solving it in my head. And minus 3 divided by 3 minus, and this is going to be, well, first it'll be 1/2. I'll do it like this. Can change my mind what I want to do there. At first, this will be minus 1/2. All right. Yeah. Just get rid of the 3. Yeah. And so then I say, okay, no, we don't want it. We don't want a fraction back here. So you divide this on your calculator, right? This will be y. Oops, why am I slopping this up? Here we go. Y less than minus 2x over 3. And then just make this a decimal. Minus, you don't have to. I mean, you can tell what minus 1/2 is. So that means my first dot's going to be right there at minus 1/2, isn't it? This is where you start. Whoops, that was a bad circling. Come on. There we go. This is where I start. Right here. Down point, that's the vertical intercept, the y-intercept. Start here at down 0.5. And then from there, you go rise over run. So you go down 2, down 1, 2. Right, so I'm going from half to half to half. And then over 3. 1, 2, 3. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in a minute with the thing. Remember, you start there. This is the vertical y-intercept. Right, you start there down 1/2, right here. Here's my first dot, down 1/2. And then you do rise over run, the fraction next to x. And that's why, again, we leave a fraction next to x, but we want a decimal at the back. So I go down 2, right? That's the rise, and over 3, and I end up right there. Down 2, put it down to here, and down to here, and then over 3. 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay, so let's do this. Come on back down. We got this tool. Okay, whoop, put it back there. So click and click, and then the shading. What's shading? Why less down here? Huh? There's less down there, and let's submit it. See if I'm crazy. It's right. Green check mark. So there we go.